The double legend Luffy and Law debuted on the global version of One Piece Treasure Cruise on the 28th of October 2019. This was Japan's anniversary for the year, and many global players could not wait to get their hands on the new best unit in the game. This entire batch involves double characters. The units in this batch include Rulers of the Desert, Mr. Zero and Miss All Sunday, G5's trusted commanders, Smoker and Toadskii, Newcomer cheering for a miracle, Ivankov and Bon Clay, and CP9 enforcers of Dark Justice, Lucci and Kaku. And one of the SugoFest exclusive characters in this batch gave us an immensely powerful character that enabled more rainbow squads with no drawbacks in team building. And the most enticing component of this character was the introduction of the first 2.5 times slot effect booster in the game, introducing Miracle Making Generation Luffy and Law. In this series, we'll be traveling back in time to experience some of the older SugoFest exclusive characters in their prime, aiming to show just what it was like to use these characters on their debut. I hope you enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's enter the Legends of OPTC. So thank you very much for checking out yet another episode of the Legends of OPTC, and today we're checking out a monumental release character, Luffy and Law. This was, I believe, the anniversary character for Japan during 2019, and it did take us quite a few months for it to arrive on global, but when it did, everyone went crazy. We all wanted this character. This was the first character in the game to introduce a 2.5 times orb boost, which is crazy to think about considering how often we see boosts that are 2.5 or higher. Essentially any kind of character, any legend that releases these days that has a boosting effect, and whether it be attack, orbs, whatever, usually is a 2.5 at a minimum. So it's crazy to see how far we've come. This is the first character to have that. So yeah, this was a pretty big deal. Big numbers, and also being Luffy and Law together, very popular. So we have a bunch of characters to talk about as well. Let's start things off with the first rare recruit, and all of the characters in this batch were all dual units. So we've got Mr. Zero and Miss All Sunday, who are going to be Cerebral Slasher pretty much the entire way through, but then Cerebral Striker when they're in their combined form. Very strange. Captain ability of these units really don't matter, but it's more of their sailors and specials, and they're obviously their switch effect. So the first sailor ability, resisting 2 turns of special reverse, is obviously really good. Reducing 1 turn or 2 turns of special bind on this character as well is actually really nice. And it does say that they boost dex, or they make dex slots beneficial to cerebral characters. So yeah, I believe like this is for Crocodile, this was for Miss All Sunday, and then when they're in their dual form, they have an ability, and then they also make dex slots beneficial in all forms of the character. So really weird the way that they structure these dual units back in the day. They really differentiated between the two forms. The switch ability of Croc and Miss All Sunday would slightly boost chances of getting matching slots for 1 turn. Obviously not that great. And then the special ability, 80% damage reduction and 1.75 color affinity, and they combine to the dual unit for 2 turns. You know, back when this came out, a 1.75 rainbow color affinity was actually really good. A lot of color affinities were specific to classes or colors, and this was just a rainbow affinity boost. So when it came out, it was very strong. The next rare recruit is Toadskii and Smoker. So you've got Smoker being striker driven, Toadskii slasher cerebral, and combined for driven slasher. And their cremate abilities are some stat boosting stuff, and they do make tandem slots beneficial to Psy and Quick. And their switch ability would randomize recovery, MTG, and bomb slots they'll just shuffle them around, and then also recover 1000 HP. So again, not the greatest switch, but it does work with their special, where it's 100k fixed damage to all enemies, changing all type slots and block slots into matching, and lock them for 1 turn. So if you've got really terrible slots, you can use their switch ability to shuffle them around, then their special ability to lock them into matching slots for 1 turn. That's pretty much all they did. You know, didn't really see a lot of play, unfortunately. There are some niche usages for this character, but mostly doesn't see play. Ivankov and Bon Clay was one of the best rare recruits when this character came out. The thing is because back in the day with Treasure Cruise, there was a lot of difficult content that we really had to take our time to beat. We had to use a lot of stall mechanics, and healing and damage reduction were monumental to have in your teams, and this character provided that. So this character, Free Spirit Fighter all the way through, captain ability doesn't really matter. They reduce special bind on themselves by 5, which is pretty nice to have. And then their special ability itself would remove poison, recovery down, and blindness completely. 5-turn removal of Bind and Despair, recover 13 times this character's recover at the end of the turn for 5 turns, and then they fuse for 2 turns. And of course, their switch ability, 1 turn of paralysis reduction and 20% damage reduction. This was a very useful character back when it first came out, being able to provide so many turns of healing and switching every single turn possible to get damage reduction and also paralysis removal. Very, very useful character to have. So this was definitely the character that most people wanted to get their hands on when pulling in this Sugo Fest. And then we have the final one, which is Rob Lucci and Kaku. And this character was a more offensively focused character. So you've got Lucci, Fighter Powerhouse, Kaku, Powerhouse Slasher, combined also for Powerhouse Slasher. Their crewmate ability is actually kind of interesting. Their limit break one. If you have a powerhouse, a fighter, or a slasher captain, remove all turns of blindness. Actually pretty good, and actually still might see some niche usages if you need to get around blindness debuff, you know. So it's actually kind of interesting. Their switch ability makes tandem slots beneficial to fighter, powerhouse, and slashers for 1 turn, but also adds a 0.3 chain addition for 1 turn. Actually pretty good for a switch ability back in the day. And then their special, damage dealing special, and then it says that if your captain is powerhouse, fighter, or slasher, you get a 2x attack boost to powerhouse, fighter, and slasher. Again, as I said, very offensively focused, being able to use their switch ability to get a chain boost, and then their special ability for an attack boost makes a lot of sense, you know. Not a terrible unit, but due to the low multipliers this character gives you, and also not really doing a whole lot, didn't really see a whole lot of play, but that very unique crewmate ability definitely helped them out. Now, we're not going to be talking about the Big Mom, Zeus, and Prometheus in this video. We'll leave that for next week's episode. But this episode, we're focusing on Luffy and Law. When he came out, was widely considered to be the best legend in the game, which is crazy to think about now. So you got Luffy, Fighter, Free Spirit Dex, Law, Slasher, Cerebral, Quick, and then combined form was Fighter and Slasher. And this was honestly one of the things that a lot of people didn't like. In their combined form, a lot of people would have hoped that it either kept the Cerebral or the Free Spirit class to have at least one of them maintained on the crew, considering some of the other characters that release following Luffy and Law. You know, if they had Free Spirit and Cerebral as one of their dual form typings or classes, definitely would have helped out a lot. Now we move on to the captain abilities, right? So Luffy's captain ability would boost all characters' attack by 3.5 and provide 1.25 times health. That's all it does. So obviously very, very bland. You move on to Law though, 3 times attack, also very low, 1.25 health, recover 0.5 times recovery at the end of the turn for every time you hit a perfect. So you got Luffy being super offensively focused, you have Law, which can provide some buffs, but mainly defensively focused, and then combined for a 4.5 multiplier captain, which I believe at this point was the highest captain multiplier in the game on release, and then basically combines the best of both worlds, HP boost and recovery every time you hit a perfect. People wanted this because it was just the biggest numbers you could get access to, quite obviously. Crewmate abilities, you've got this one which reduces paralysis and silence completely on this character, really strong. And then the switch ability was another big component here, where it removes their slot bind completely and then changes their own orb through block slots into matching, and then gives themselves a 2 times attack boost and makes their own normal attacks bypass all damage reducing effects. So that includes barriers, damage reduction, damage threshold, damage immunity or nullification. It just allowed you to go through everything, but it's only just for himself, and then the 2 times attack boost is only for himself. And it just makes you think that this character with the potential super evolution could go even crazier. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they could do with the super evolution. And then we have the special ability, which was very unique. This is the first time in the game that we saw a dual unit have 2 separate specials depending on who was the character that you used the special with at the time. So if Luffy is active when you launch the special, it would do 400 times his attack and typeless damage to a single target. Dex and Quick are beneficial for all characters for 1 turn, and then it boosts the orbs of all characters by 2.5 for 1 turn, combined for 3 turns. If Law was the unit instead of doing 400 times attack to a single target, it would be 75 times attack, typeless damage to all enemies, and I believe that goes through all damage reducing effects. So just depending on what you wanted to have, you could actually get different damage boosting effects, but the rest of the special is the same: Dex and Quick beneficial, 2.5 orb boost. So yeah, very, very strong unit. Very much looking forward to seeing what this character could really be with a super evolution. Alright, so we got the wheel. Let's see what we're going to be playing today. We've got Clash Big Mom, the quick version of course, and then we've got Colosseum Law, the Psy one from Stampede, and Colosseum Dofi Treble. So let's go ahead and spin that wheel and see what we get. I believe Dofi Treble was actually the release Colosseum for Luffy and Law, if I remember correctly. Let's see what we're going to get. We are going to get Colosseum Law, which I actually think is probably one of the most difficult Colosseums out there. Just has really annoying gimmicks. But of course, Luffy Law being Rainbow Captain, we should be able to find units that can give us what we need to do in order to kill this content. So let's go ahead and see what we can build. Alright, we're in game now with Luffy and Law, and of course remember back in the day when you used to use dual units, you actually couldn't select which unit you started off as. So because Luffy is the first character of the dual unit, we're going to be starting as Luffy, of course, and we've got Shirahoshi to manipulate rainbow slots, which is going to be very important once we reach the last stage. And also Garp, a very useful character that saw lots of usage since his release. Even in today's day and age, if a character revives with low HP, Garp's going to be on the table of discussion. And then we've also got Sabo and Jinbei, which are going to enable us to kill one of the stages as we move along. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's get it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And here we go. So we're jumping into the final round versus Trafalgar Law, the Stampede Coliseum. And of course, I actually forgot about the fact that Shirahoshi gives us a full board of rainbow slots at the start of the quest. Of that is actually pretty cool. So we're going to go attack with Luffy first, because we can use the switchability of Luffy and Law to generate matching slots on them whenever we need them. So of course, you know, we're going to have to stall for some specials, which is going to take a little bit of time, but it shouldn't be too bad. Of course, if we need a little bit of healing, we can switch over to Law, as when we hit perfects, we actually get a bit of recovery back when we do use him. I don't know how much damage these birds are going to do to us here, but you do see that Luffy and Law, with their switchability, being able to, you know, not only give themselves an attack boost, but also make their normal attacks bypass defensive effects. Very, very useful effect to have. Go ahead and kill him, consume that recovery slot. Shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll go ahead and kill this guy. Nice, got 2 perfects in, get a bit of recovery back. Yeah, so, you know, Luffy Law, as I said a little bit earlier on in the video, when they came out, they were widely considered to be the best in the game. They're just really, really good, as you could use them in almost any scenario, because they are a rainbow captain, so you can just use whatever you want with them, and they're gonna work in a lot of cases. And the fact that their special is also a rainbow orb boost of 2.5 times multiplier, just unparalleled, just so strong on release. And you could definitely tell that this character was basically built to be the power creep character moving forward in the game. It was a big jump in power, and, you know, further introduced us to some crazier stuff later on down the line. Obviously, next episode, looking forward to that, is going to be with Big Mom, who recently got her super evolution. But definitely looking forward to this, to the character after that, which was Sabo and Koala, which didn't really synergize like perfectly with Luffy Law, but was still a really good character to use alongside them, as they allowed you to do some really, really cool stuff. But we've got this turtle here. Do we need to stall a bit more? I don't think we do. So let's just go ahead and move on. Let's just move on. So next we're going to have Battle 3, which is going to have Monkey D Luffy, and we have Jinbei and Sabo to help us out here in terms of doing enough damage to kill him, because if we don't kill him quickly, Luffy just does really bad stuff, especially if you stall a couple turns on this guy. It's just not very good. So we're going to go ahead and we'll switch over to Luffy, actually, because we're going to want to switch into Lord moving into the next stage. We'll go ahead and use the Jinbei special here. Now, look, this Jinbei is level limit break 5, which means he does have the additional buff of giving us color affinity. Normally, when you would use him back when he first came out, you wouldn't actually get access to color affinity, but the main reason why we're using Jinbei here is because we can remove the rainbow shield on the enemy side of the field, and we don't need Sabo moving forward, so we can actually use the Sabo special as well. And this is just the base 6-star form of Sabo, not the super evolution, of course. Took us quite a long time to get that. But Sabo is going to give us a really nice buff here. I believe it's the chain boundary and the orb boost for fighters, shooters, and free spirit. So that actually works really well with Trafalgar Law and Luffy. And now we just want to hit our 2 goods to pierce that barrier. And then get the knockout. Easy. Now we get to the really hard stage. I remember when this Colosseum first came out, this stage was ridiculous. The amount of stupid barriers. You got a tap timing barrier, a combo hit barrier, and an orb barrier. But after 3 turns have passed, they actually will run away, and depending on who's remaining, you get like different debuffs. So we can actually, manipulate that in our favor, and that's what kind of people realized, is that you actually really don't need to worry about Alvida, really, because the debuffs that Alvida does to you, like, they're really not that harsh at all, so we don't really have to worry about that. But we are actually at low HP here, and we are going to take a bit of damage, so we use the special of the host ship, which is going to give us a bit of end-of-turn recovery here, and we're going to go ahead and switch Luffy into Law, which is going to give himself an attack boost, obviously, but the ability to bypass defensive effects for this stage is so good, and because Law has type advantage versus Kabaji, we should be able to do good enough damage to hopefully get that knockout. So here we go, let's do it. Easy, very, very good. Very, very good damage there from Trafalgar Law. And of course, like, you could technically swap 2 Luffys, so you have 2 characters with type advantage after breaking that barrier. But the thing is Luffy's captain ability does have a higher multiplier. Remember, we talked about this. Law's captain ability is only 3x. Luffy's is 3.5. So you do get pretty good damage from running double Luffy, as we're going to switch into Luffy here. And our main focus is taking down Buggy. I don't think we'll take him down this turn, but we'll see how much damage we can do, despite not having many buffs activated here. Let's see. Okay, so it did well over half, which is actually pretty surprising. That was a pretty good amount of damage there. But now we get to... So, at the end of this turn here, they're going to run away, and depending on who's left, we get certain debuffs. And as we said, Alvida, we're not really going to worry about her. Our main focus is Buggy. So at this point here, we can actually just switch over to Law, and then we can use his special ability here, which is going to give our characters a 2.5 times orb boost effect. And because, when you use their switch ability, they get themselves a guaranteed matching slot and a 2 times orb boost. So using their switch and special gives themselves 2 times attack, 2.5 orb boost, guaranteed matching slot. It's a lot of damage. So this should be enough to kill Buggy, and then we can move on to the last stage. Let's get it. There we go. So Buggy's taken down, and Alvida is left, and she does slot bind, I believe. Bit of damage, and yes, some slot bind on the left-hand side of the crew, but it doesn't really matter because Jinbei and Garp have potential abilities to remove it, and remember, Luffy and Law's switch effect removes slot bind off themselves completely, which is great. So it just works out so well here. Law, you can see he has lots of different debuffs here. He switches his type around. He makes all of these slots badly matching, which is why we wanted Shirahoshi. And then Law has an effect where he doesn't allow you to use attack boosting effects, but it doesn't matter because if we use the switch ability for an attack boost, he can't react to that. And now activating Luffy Law once again, we get the 2 times attack boost on Luffy Law because of their switch effect, and then we have the 2.5 orb boost for the whole crew. There is still a little bit of an annoyance though, because Law, whilst he does change his typing, he also has a damage immunity buff, or a damage nullification, so you cannot damage him with Psi or Int typed characters. So that obviously does kind of suck, but it's not going to really hurt us in the long run because we're going to be attacking him with quick characters ideally here. Shirahoshi, of course, providing healing and the full board of rainbow slots. And with this, we should have enough damage to pick up the dubs. So here we go, let's get it. Nice, there we go. 14 million damage from Luffy Law, and then we have the Law activating his revive, of course, which is going to give us a lot of nasty debuffs, where he's going to despair our crew, he's going to just do lots of bad stuff. But at this point in time, it actually doesn't really matter, because as we said, we've got Ambush Garp, or Invasion Garp, and this is where we can use his special ability to just completely ignore all of the debuffs that occur on the revive, considering Law revives with less than 25% of his max HP, and that is going to be an easy dub with Luffy Law versus the Trafalgar Law Coliseum. Very, very easy, and a lot of fun to use this character to just bypass the defensive effects. As I said earlier on, very much looking forward to seeing what they do with this character in terms of a super evolution. And that's going to end it from me. Thank you so much for watching the video, and as we said, we're going to be looking at the second half of the characters in next week's video, which is going to be the Big Mom duel unit with Prometheus and Zeus. It's going to be an interesting unit to talk about as well. A unit that you don't really see too often as a captain, you know, very, very weirdly structured unit, but still, it's going to be a lot of fun to do that one next week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.